Picture this. You wake up, grab your phone and start scrolling. Someone your age is showing off a new car. Another one is vacationing on a private island. Another looks effortlessly beautiful, flawless skin, perfect body, and dressed in luxury. Suddenly, your own life feels small, as if you're falling behind in every way. Schopenhauer once wrote that comparison is the death of joy. He didn't mean it in a casual way. He meant that the very act of measuring your life against another's is a form of mental self-harm and the thief of happiness. Think about it. The moment you compare yourself to someone else, you declare to yourself that you are not enough as you are. You measure your worth by a scale you didn't design, for a competition you didn't agree to enter. And yet, here you are, keeping score. Schopenhauer believed that most human suffering comes from desires we inherit from society. Desires to be seen as better than others, to climb a social ladder that has no top. He called it the will to life, a blind, endless striving that never lets us rest. In modern terms, it's the urge to win in life. But against whom? Against everyone? That means you'll lose, inevitably. We are born into a world where everyone starts at different points. Some inherit wealth, beauty, or talents. Others inherit debt, hardship, or disabilities. But instead of playing the game on our own terms, we try to beat people who started miles ahead. We don't realize it's a rigged contest. Every time you scroll social media and see someone younger, richer, fitter, or more admired, your mind registers it as a loss. You've just fed your brain the belief that your life is inadequate. Do that enough, and you don't just lose joy. You lose the ability to feel it at all. The cruel irony is that comparison doesn't even make you better. It doesn't motivate you in the long term. It corrodes you. Because no matter how high you climb, there will always be someone ahead of you. Always. You can be the richest man in your city until you hear about someone richer in another. You can be the fittest in your gym until you open a fitness magazine. Schopenhauer's brutal truth? There is no finish line. The moment you live for comparison, you sentence yourself to permanent dissatisfaction. And here's the most dangerous part. The more you compare, the more your mind becomes addicted to it. You start scanning every room, every feed, every conversation for proof that you're winning or losing. Your peace becomes hostage to the scoreboard in your head. The question is, what happens if you stop keeping score? That's where the truth begins. Because Schopenhauer didn't just diagnose the disease, he also hinted at the cure. But it's not what you think. Schopenhauer saw life as a pendulum swinging between pain and boredom. Pain comes from unfulfilled desires. Boredom comes from having them fulfilled, and then realizing you still feel empty. Comparison fuels both sides of this pendulum because it ensures that your desires never run out. Here's how it works. You see someone with more than you, more money, more attention, more beauty. Instantly, you feel a lack. That lack is pain. Your mind says, I must close the gap. You work, you hustle, you grind. Maybe you even catch up to them. For a moment, you feel a surge of pride. But the moment passes, and boredom sets in. So you look for another person to outrun, and the cycle restarts. The problem? This isn't progress. It's motion without destination. You mistake movement for meaning. You confuse getting ahead with living well. Schopenhauer compared it to a dog chasing its own tail, forever spinning, forever exhausted, never realizing it's chasing something it can never truly catch. Modern life makes this trap almost inescapable. Your ancestors compared themselves to a handful of people in their village. You compare yourself to millions every day. Instagram doesn't show you ordinary lives. It shows you the highlight reels of the most exceptional people on earth, the richest, the most beautiful, the most talented. And your brain, ancient and unprepared for this, treats every single one of them as your direct competitor. Worse, comparison often makes you abandon your own path entirely. You start chasing careers you don't love, hobbies you don't care about, and possessions you don't need. All because someone else has them. You shape your life not around your own desires, but around winning a game that doesn't exist outside of your imagination. Schopenhauer would call this borrowing your desires from others. A dangerous mistake, because when you finally get what they had, you often find it doesn't satisfy you at all. You climbed their mountain only to realize it's not the view you wanted. The truth is brutal. If your sense of self is built on being better than others, then you'll never have a self at all. You'll just be a mirror, reflecting back whatever the world values at the moment, and when those values change, you'll feel lost again. Real progress, Schopenhauer argued, comes from turning inward, from reducing your dependence on external validation. Not from building a taller tower so others can see you, but from building a stronger foundation so you can stand firm even when no one is watching. But here's the catch. Letting go of comparison feels like giving up. Your ego will resist it with everything it has. Because your ego needs an opponent. Without someone to measure yourself against, you're left with a terrifying question: who am I without the race? That question is where the real work begins. Most men believe they are at war with other men. The co-worker who gets promoted before them, the friend who's fitter, better dressed, more confident with women, the stranger on social media whose life looks like a movie. We see them as rivals, enemies even. But Schopenhauer would tell you the harsh truth. These people are not your enemies. The real enemy is the comparison itself. And you are the one keeping it alive. Think about it. That man you envy, he might not even know you exist. He's not waking up thinking about you. He's not plotting against you, but you're feeding him space in your head every day. You've built a mental opponent out of thin air and decided that your peace will depend on whether or not you beat him. It's a game he's not even playing. This is the cruelty of the human ego. It fabricates a scoreboard out of nothing, then demands you win. And here's the worst part. Even when you do win, you don't get peace. The scoreboard just resets and the game starts again with a new opponent. It never ends. Schopenhauer knew this was a form of self-torture. He wrote that envy is the most stupid of vices because it punishes you, not the other person. The man you resent doesn't feel your bitterness. You do. You carry it. You live with it. You age with it. And eventually you become so accustomed to it that you mistake it for your personality. But why do we cling to comparison if it's so poisonous? Because it gives us direction, even if it's the wrong one. Without someone to beat, many men feel the drift. The rivalry becomes a substitute for purpose. In some twisted way, envy feels productive. It keeps you moving. It gives you a reason to wake up. You're not living for yourself, but at least you're living for something. This is why letting go of comparison is terrifying. Without it, you're left face to face with the emptiness inside, the void Schopenhauer spoke of so often. That void is where most people quit. They run back to the comfort of comparison just to avoid asking the hard questions. What do I actually want? Who am I when I stop chasing shadows? What's left of me when I remove the scoreboard? Schopenhauer's answer wasn't about becoming passive or lazy. It was about replacing false battles with real ones. The real opponent isn't the man next to you. It's your own insatiable will. That blind, endless craving for more. Defeat that, and you stop needing to win against others entirely. But here's where the paradox appears. The moment you stop competing, you start to grow in a way others can't touch. You're no longer playing on their field. You've built your own, and from that position, something unexpected happens. You stop envying others, and strangely, they start envying you. Next, let's dig into how turning inward can not only free you from comparison, but make you untouchable. Schopenhauer believed that the highest form of human freedom wasn't political, financial, or even physical. It was psychological. Freedom from the need for comparison. Freedom from the invisible chains of envy. Freedom from the scoreboard. When you stop competing on other people's terms, something strange happens. The noise fades. That constant mental chatter, who's ahead, who's behind, am I winning, am I losing, begins to go silent. In that silence, you discover a truth most men never hear. You were never really losing, because you were never in the same race. But here's the thing. To get here, you can't just try not to compare. That's like telling an addict to just stop thinking about it. Schopenhauer would say the way to kill comparison is not by suppressing it, but by starving it. And you starve it by building a life so aligned with your own nature that another man's path becomes irrelevant to you. This is where most people fail. They say they want to focus on themselves, but in reality, they're still quietly checking over their shoulder, measuring every gain against others. That's not freedom. That's just comparison wearing a disguise. To be truly untouchable, you must redefine the game so completely that no one else is even playing it. If you love writing, your success isn't in book sales. It's in how deeply you can express yourself. If you love training your body, your worth isn't in having the best physique. It's in mastering discipline, feeling strong, living well. These are internal metrics. No one can take them from you, and no one can outscore you in them because they exist entirely within your own frame of reference. Schopenhauer's philosophy here is brutal but liberating. If you measure yourself only by what you control, you cannot lose. And if you cannot lose, envy loses all its power over you. This doesn't mean you ignore the world or live like a hermit. It means you interact with it from a place of self-direction, not self-comparison. You can admire another man's success without feeling diminished by it. You can see beauty without wanting to own it. You can witness someone else's achievement without it sparking resentment. In this state, you are no longer prey for the endless marketing machine that thrives on making you feel less than. And here's where the paradox deepens. When you stop chasing what others have, you often surpass them without trying. Why? Because while they burn energy competing with each other, you're moving forward in a straight, uninterrupted line. You're not getting distracted. You're not changing course to match someone else's pace. You're quietly stacking small, consistent wins that build into something massive over time. Eventually, people notice. They see your calm, your lack of insecurity, your self-contained way of moving through the world, and because they're still trapped in comparison, they begin to compare themselves to you. Without meaning to, you become the man they measure themselves against, the man they envy. But here's the difference. You don't feed on their envy. You don't need it. Their opinion, whether admiration or resentment, is irrelevant to you, and that's why you are untouchable. Because the moment you stop needing validation, you gain something rarer than power, wealth, or status. You gain sovereignty over your own mind. Schopenhauer would say that in this state, you've escaped the servitude of the will. You're no longer a puppet pulled by the strings of desire and rivalry. You've stepped out of the arena and into your own domain. But there's one more step. Because even when you reach this level of detachment, the world will still try to pull you back into its games. The final challenge is learning how to remain free when the temptation to compare comes knocking again. Next, let's learn how to live beyond the reach of envy, even permanently. Escaping comparison is not a one-time victory. It's a discipline. Even when you've built your own path, even when you've tasted the freedom of living on your own terms, the world will keep trying to drag you back into the race you left behind. And it will do it subtly, through friends' casual bragging, through strangers flaunting their lives online, through the constant drip feed of curated perfection in your feeds. Schopenhauer understood that the will, that blind, restless drive inside us, never truly disappears. You can quiet it, you can master it, but it waits patiently for moments of weakness. That's why the final step in becoming untouchable isn't just escaping comparison. It's staying free when the temptation returns. The first key is awareness. Most people compare themselves unconsciously. They feel a pang of envy, a flash of inadequacy, without realizing what triggered it. But when you see it as it happens, you gain control. You can pause and say, there it is, the old poison. And in that pause, you rob it of its automatic power. The second key is gratitude. Not the shallow, forced kind where you make a list of things you should be grateful for, but a deep, visceral recognition of what is already enough. Schopenhauer didn't believe in naive optimism. He knew life was filled with suffering. But precisely because of that, He saw value in noticing the absence of pain, the rare moments of contentment, the small, overlooked luxuries of daily life. When you train yourself to see these, the need to measure against others fades. Your life stops feeling like a deficit. The third key is alignment. If your daily actions match your deepest values, you become far harder to shake. The man who knows his mission doesn't waste time checking who's ahead of him. He's too busy walking his own road. And here's the quiet truth. Most people's envy is amplified by their own lack of alignment. They're not truly living for themselves, so they keep scanning for external proof they're doing well. If you're living in alignment, you don't need proof. Finally, there's perspective. Schopenhauer saw life as a fleeting, fragile thing, a brief interruption in the endless stretch of time before and after us. Seen from this angle, the obsession with beating others becomes absurd. What does it matter if one shadow is slightly longer than another, when both will vanish at sunset? You start to see comparison for what it is, a small, petty game in a world that will swallow all of us whole in the end. That sounds dark, but there's freedom in it. If nothing lasts, you may as well live exactly as you please. When you reach this point, you are no longer seduced by the scoreboard. You don't need to win arguments. You don't need to flaunt victories. You don't even need to be noticed. Your life becomes a closed loop, fed by your own standards, nourished by your own progress. And the world can't touch that. The irony is that this is the moment people will notice you the most. They'll wonder why you move differently, why you're not rattled by the same insecurities they are. They'll project stories onto you, assuming you must have some hidden advantage, some secret they don't. But the truth will always be simpler. You stopped playing their game. And when they try to pull you back in, through envy, through provocation, through subtle competition, you'll smile because you know something they don't. There is no race. There never was. There was only the mind's need to invent one and your willingness to believe it. Schopenhauer's final gift to you is the permission to step off the track entirely. Not to walk slower, not to run faster, but to leave the arena, close the gates, and live without the roar of the crowd. This is where true happiness, or as close as life allows, actually lives. And so you end up with the most paradoxical form of victory. You win by refusing to compete. You gain everything by needing nothing. You become untouchable not by towering over others, but by walking away and never looking back. The scoreboard fades. The race dissolves. All that's left is you, and the quiet, unshakable truth that you were free the moment you stopped caring who was ahead. Please understand that happiness was never about having more than others. Instead, it was about being free from the comparison in the first place. If this spoke to you, stay with us, because the next video will go even deeper into truths that most people ignore, but can destroy or rebuild their life. So subscribe, turn on the bell, and take this journey with me toward one step closer to your desired freedom.